This episode of The Bold Take is also brought to you by the very wavy, as Cap is demonstrating right now, the very wavy, the very creative New Era Marketing. That's not the hat company. It's the marketing company, NUERA Marketing. Check out their website. Their website is like a perfect advertisement for themselves because their website is incredible. And what they do partially is build websites. So hit up their website. It's neweramarketing.com. It has this really crazy like homepage, landing page right now where you can like spin around. Dillard, if you went to it right now, your mind would be blown. It's like colors and rainbows and stuff kind of. But they have a page on there that kind of goes into what they do, creative, social, digital, web. But you can tell by this stuff they do fancy websites, man. Some of their clients, Pratt guys, City of Jacksonville, Modern Climate Control, and they're also a local company, which is really cool. That's something that we always try to support. So we appreciate them, but I'm pretty sure every creative and marketing professional in town uses them. Have you guys heard any other ones?
Like every single one? That would be impressive.
That's what I'm seeing.
I do know that like if you have a company out there, which many of you listening do, and everybody needs help in today's day and age with getting your brand recognized, being able to cut through the noise and find your customers, right? And that's what New Era Marketing really specializes in, the brand development. And then I don't think any company is too small, right? Like if you have needs on that marketing end, reach out to them. They'll sit down with you. That's the beauty of having a local company that's a smaller shop, that can give you that one-on-one attention. And that's what they're really about over there. It's a bunch of good dudes and gals. And they're hardcore Jaguar fans as well. So big supporters of ours. We're big supporters of theirs. If we ever join the current century, maybe we'll have our own website for the podcast. And I know one thing, the only people I'm calling is them, because me, Dilla, and Solly, we can't make any damn web pages.
Facts. Again, New Era Marketing. It's NUERA marketing.com. Again, website speaks for itself. Visit it, hit it. Welcome everybody to some new take. Let's talk to the real expert around here. That's right. It's Eric Dillard. Dillard, how's it going, dude?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Happy to see your face. I love your upside down Jaguars hat. Shout out to.
I'm never taking this shit off.
Originals.
I thought that was just Zoom. I didn't know that was actually upside down.
It was a misprint. Solly just got one of them.
Not gonna lie.
Super Solly got the one of one. He was the whole website actually only sold one hat, and it went to Solly. That's the only reason they sold out.
It's kind of what they do over at DTWD Originals. They sell one hat and it says sold out, and one fucking
guys suck, man. I hate those guys. They're the worst.
Fucking nerds.
Probably getting rich off of the 5 hats that they sell every time.
Motherfucker has plantation shutters behind him. He's loaded.
Freaking loaded, my guy. So we're joined by our guy, John Shipley, Jaguars Report, Sports Illustrated, the illustrious Sports Illustrated, home of many journalistic mavens and heroes over the years. You like how I used maven there? That was good.
I'll be honest, I don't even think that's the company name
anymore. But he doesn't know.
can't be positive. Don't think it is. But I still liked it.
Love it. I love it. Listen, we're men of the people. We respect our listeners. We love our listeners, and we heard you.
They all said, I'm tired of you telling stories about your stupid fucking lives. I want to hear about the Jacksonville Jaguars, because that's what gets me going.
Yeah, and you know what? For all the angry people out there, we hear you.
We're here for you. We're here to talk about the only number one pick that we acknowledge on this podcast.
Zay Jones?
Travon Walker.
Oh, Travon Walker. My bad. So we said, listen, the season is upon us. Some riveting things coming out of Flowery Branch, Georgia. And training camp is winding down. We're in the dog days of summer. It's about to be the 2022 Jacksonville Jaguar season, the year of the Jaguar.
It's true. I seen it at the Chinese restaurant.
On the Chinese calendar, the year of the Jaguar. I don't know if you folks knew that. Look it up on the internet if you don't believe us.
And if it's not right, so what?
Cap, it's been 2 minutes and 35 seconds and you haven't talked about football yet. What the fuck are you doing here?
My bad.
I'm just Jacksonville Jaguars like 9 times. Give the guy.
I'm just trying to lead into it. I'm trying to lead into it.
That's not football. That's some sorry excuse for football.
All right. Let's cut to it here, Ship. Welcome. Thank you for joining us again. We're not going to make you run the gauntlet this time. You can.
I'm a little disappointed, honestly.
Okay, well, I can always come up with one on the fly. Don't worry.
No, I'm all about it. I'm happy to be y'all's second choice behind Cole Hartley tonight.
Well, listen, Cole was busy, so we decided we'd settle for the next best thing.
He was coming up with a new way to tweet how bad Trevor is.
Well, let's lead off with that. Let's just get wild.
Let's do it.
Let's get wild. John Shipley, in your opinion, what kind of training camp has Trevor Lawrence had thus far?
Is Harold his middle name?
I don't know.
I honestly think, and maybe I have some, cognitive bias because I thought, coming out of Clemson that he was, obviously good as hell, best quarterback prospect in years, but I honestly think he's kicked ass during camp. I mean, I really do. There's definitely been times where the offense has kind of lulled, and I'd say moments where he's had bad moments, but I can only think of one practice where I was like, dang, this dude stunk today. And I can be honest with you, I can think back to last year's training camp where, I probably set out for a third of the practices. And then, back then, obviously the excuse was he's a rookie and, obviously you're going to expect the dude to be better. Like I know, newsflash, quarterback's better in his second year than his first. But I feel like he's had, by any standards, a camp people should be excited about. I know a lot of people within the team, like people who are actually associated with his development, have a lot invested in it. They're really excited about what he's shown. There's been like the misses he had against the Steelers or even the Browns where you're like, okay, that's a makeable pass. How did he miss that? I've seen those in training camp too. And there was one pass where it was like a 7-yard pass to a wide open Dan Arnold back when he used to get first team reps and like the first week of camp, and he missed them. And I remember thinking, dang, I was like, okay, dang, normally the guy isn't supposed to miss those, but then he makes that throw like next 5 or 6 times on top of a bunch of crazy ass throws. So I honestly think he's had a good camp, and I feel like he's played 3 quarters this preseason. I feel like Jaguars fans are rightfully so hurt by quarterbacks. Blake Bortles was supposed to be good. Nick Foles was supposed to be good. Obviously never was. Gardner Minshew, was supposed to be okay. List goes on and on. So I can understand why if you see Trevor Lawrence miss a routine throw, you're ready to head to the Matthews Bridge and take a dive. Like I completely get it.
Mm-hmm.
My thinking is though that is one, I really believe if you watch the other quarterbacks around the NFL, the other 32 starting guys, like Dak Prescott will have a handful of throws a game. You're like, what the hell is this dude doing? Like it's going to happen. And when you're in a small sample size, they're going to look worse. But I think when you look at the overall big picture, some of the small things he's doing, looking off safeties with his eyes, going through his progressions, I think he looks way better than he did last year. I know people who are there this year who were with him last year think he looks way better. And I really think the only people who are like concerned are, the people who, when he throws an incompletion in preseason games, the Cole Hartleys, love Cole, but when they're ready to melt down after if he throws 21 passes, the 2 or 3 bad ones, they're going to look bad because he only played 2 quarters. But I think he's looked like a real deal. And I don't want to say I think he's there yet because obviously, they haven't even played a regular season game, and I still think he's going to get a lot better. But I think he's going to take the jump that people expect. I honestly do. And if he doesn't this year, if he still looks like this year, like you have to go into next year, like, okay, is this guy any good? Then I think you can start asking, the hard questions. But I don't think they're in a situation like that. I think he's going to fall this year. I really do.
I got you. Do you think like so if we ignore the Raiders game because he didn't play in it, but in the Browns game and the Steelers game, the first two series he was kind of started out slow. In the third series, he looked really good in both of those games. Do you think that's telling like slow start, or do you think that's just more coincidental and nothing really to look into right now?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think there is some to I Pine of Jack on Twitter. He said that he's the video game Madden meme where the guy's relaxing at first and then he like leans forward. He's like, okay, I have to actually try now, after the first two drives. Like, I do think even with his personality, you can kind of get a sense of, okay, maybe it's the preseason. This dude's kind of just, effing around for the first drive or two. But I also think it's like the nature of the preseason is that teams are literally just trying to work on stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's not practice, but it also kind of is. Like the Browns game, that first throw to Zay Jones, that double move, that like 30-yard gain.
Mhm.
Press Taylor said a few days later that they had never thrown that pass in practice to each other, like in a live setting at all, and that they called it just to be like, hey, let's see what this looks like. So I think there are a lot of things like that where they're just trying to get stuff down. Like against the Steelers. Obviously he's thrown with Christian Kirk in practice, but in a game it's going to be different. And I really think those misses for him and Christian Kirk, just it looked like to me the chemistry was just off on a couple plays, and that's something that game speed's going to kind of take care of as you get more reps. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think if you're like going into the regular season and that's still happening, I think it's an issue. But for right now, I would say no, not really.
What about Ship? What about let's go back to something that you mentioned because I think it's really interesting, at least to me. You said that people you've spoken to inside the building are excited about him. If you had to point to a few things, and obviously I don't want you to like give away any sources or anything like that, but if you had to point to a few things that are exciting people and that, your eyes, you're kind of confirming those same feelings that you're hearing from inside the building, what should people be excited about as far as that growth that they've seen from him?
No, definitely. And the thing I would point to is, when he made that throw to Marvin Jones the other night, then did, the finger wag after, I felt like that kind of showed, a little bit of the change, not to be, cliche or corny about, freaking Trevor Lawrence with the finger wag. That's, freaking epic or whatever. That's obviously stupid. But I think last year you could definitely get the sense of he was a rookie trying to find his footing, and he wasn't ever playing like, okay, I'm that dude. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't playing with the confidence of, okay, I'm gonna go out there and kick ass. Because I mean, it's hard to blame him if he wasn't. I mean, he was on a terrible Jaguars team, terrible head coach. He was still trying to figure crap out. I have felt like, and I know that others there have felt like that he's kind of taken that on more, this training camp. And that one of the first things he said when training camp started was, somebody asked him what one of his goals was for the season, and he was like, to prove that I'm the player that everybody thinks I am. And I think that he has a legitimate chip on his shoulder for not having a good season last year, and he wants to show people that, hey, I'm still that dude that everybody called a generational quarterback prospect or whatever, that guy that went number one overall. So that's definitely a change. I don't know if you want to call it confidence or even more of an aggressive mindset, but I think he's definitely changed in that way this year, where you can tell he's kind of taking this thing by the horns as opposed to last year. You can tell, he was just trying to keep his head above water every week.
Hey, you brought up Press Taylor earlier, just calling the play that hadn't even run in practice. With their, he's a young offensive coordinator. Do you see their relationship, you being around him every day? Is it more, because it's kind of, that was Press Taylor's knock. Him and Carson Wentz were too good of pals or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of got in the way of coaching. Do you see anything like that, or is that too deep? Just not enough for you?
I don't see anything like that. Like just from the stuff I observe on the practice field, I make a joke every week that it's almost impossible to find Press Taylor on the practice field, because have you been to a Jaguars practice? There's like a 5'10" white dude in Jaguars gear. Every other employee, every other dude on the field looks like Press Taylor. But when I am actually able to spot him and find him, I really, the way I view it is Doug Peterson's kind of taken that role of, he's the guy who's kind of in Trevor's ear along obviously with Mike McCoy. But I see the most communication going on with Trevor and Doug, talking, like the second or third team offense will be out there, and Press will obviously be out there kind of running the show. And you'll see Doug off to the side, talking with Trevor about, a rep that just had. So I see really, you want to talk about like the relationship of the coach who's, kind of right in Trevor's ear outside of his position coach. I think it's Doug as opposed to Press, and Press has taken more of a overall offensive, philosophy kind of coordinator. He said he's going to be not calling plays, but he's going to be up in the booth. And I think that's another kind of sign that, if he was really in Trevor's ear a lot, you would think he'd be down on the field as opposed to in the booth, but that's going to be Doug instead. So I really think Doug is the coach, at least from what I've been able to observe, who was right there, hip to hip with Trevor.
Cap, that was number one on your wish list when we were looking for a head coach this past offseason, was you wanted that guy who was going to get with the quarterback. And
yeah, he coaches, he's the coach of Trevor Lawrence and 52 other dudes. That's the way I would describe it.
Yeah. So we'll touch on the defense as a whole later, but while we're talking about the coaches, does it really seem like it's, Caldwell's defense, the head coach hangs out with the quarterback and, influences the offense, but it's Press Taylor's offense? Is that kind of how it feels? Or does Doug have more influence in the defense than what they make it seem like?
You can definitely tell it's more Doug's offense. It's his philosophy, his scheme. He's the play caller on game days, so you can really, tell when they're doing install stuff or early on in practice, he's normally with the offense. But he's the kind of head coach who, he'll still go, from unit to unit on defense, check in on how they're doing and stuff. But he lets the defensive guys run the show. It's not like Urban last year where he straight up, he probably didn't recognize half his defensive coaches because he never did anything with the defense. He's at least, his voice is present, and he at least has his finger on the pulse. But you can definitely tell it's kind of Caldwell's, his unit.
I got you, but that's kind of, you pretty much nailed it on the head. He's got his head in there. He's saying what's up. They know who the head coach is. It's not like that guy over there is. Yeah.
Like against the Steelers, you could tell it's the game. He was pissed about that 2-minute thing by Pickett. Man, he was legitimately pissed about it. And I think if he was just paying attention to the offense and just didn't care about the defense, he would have kind of just shrugged it off.
Good point too. So essentially, with him throwing the starters back out there, who was playing on the first team, that's kind of him saying yeah, you guys did suck. That shit pissed me off. Go play again.
Exactly.
So I respect it. Okay, that's sick. I'm really glad I asked that because I never really thought about it like that.
Big Dick Doug.
Get some fucking ice cream. We're going to talk about football, people, not ice cream. Don't worry. So getting back to Trevor real quick, just kind of finishing up on him, Ship, in your opinion, right? Because this is really important. And, at the end of the day, we're going to hold you to this. If you're wrong, then you're in a lot of trouble. But
I'm planting my flag.
Yeah. What as far as when it comes to Trevor in this season that he has to have, what's your prediction for him? I mean, what does a good season look like is what I was getting at for him.
You want to say a season like Herbert has had, or a season like even Burrow's had, because he's the number one freaking overall pick. You expect a guy to be like that in the second year. I think just with how things kind of, where they are in their build, that a year maybe just below, what Burrow was able to do, maybe last year, what Herbert was able to do, a year where, he can throw 30 something touchdowns, hold down on the interceptions. But, I wouldn't expect him to be top 7, top 8 in any, real significant statistics or anything like that. So I think just a year where he shows tangible growth to where the allure of Trevor Lawrence isn't just hypothetical anymore, if that makes sense, to where you can actually point to something and be like, okay, he actually had a good year. So I think something like 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I don't know how many yards is considered good anymore. I'll be honest with you.
12,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think something like that. So not MVP numbers or anything like that, but in my eyes, if he can finish the season as the best quarterback in the AFC South, which, you got Matt Ryan's decrepit self, you got Davis Mills, who I think Davis Mills is going to be terrible. There's no way a dude named Davis who looks like that is going to be good at all at playing quarterback, let alone for the Houston Texans. And then Tannehill, I think, is obviously kind of on the downside. So I think you can finish the season and say, all right, he's the dude in the AFC South. I think that was a good year.
Yeah, that's a really cool way of looking at it too. In I think a realistic measuring stick, because like you said, maybe he's not going to have the Herbert season, or he's not going to take us to the Super Bowl like Burrow. But at the end of the day, that should be a realistic expectation when you look at the roster of, or when you look at the list of quarterbacks, right? I mean, getting back to the number 1 overall pick kind of thing, you want to see, okay,
Exactly.
year 2 in a division that doesn't have any, you know, we're not the AFC West, right? Like,
Yeah.
so in a division that doesn't have any premier quarterbacks, we should be able to say that. That's fair.
If he has another year like last year where you have to basically be like, I know his numbers suck, but trust me, he was good. Then I think that's when the red flags pop up.
That's
Like,
kind of
eventually, like the production just has to be there. I really do think this year I do think it will, and I'm ready to look incredibly stupid when it doesn't happen.
You know what I heard? He said Joe Burrow, and the only thing I thought of was Super Bowl appearance. So we're going to the Super Bowl.
Hey, Joe Burrow had Jamar Chase, Trevor Lawrence, and Zay Jones.
What's up?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. I'm glad you brought up the best player on our team.
Zay baby.
Is it true, as I've heard whispers, that you're in certain circles, you're out there telling people that you're expecting a Pro Bowl season from Zay Jones? Is that true?
I'm trying to think the most diplomatic way to answer this.
Yes.
I think he could make a Pro Bowl of Jaguars.
Oh,
I think it was a Jaguar only Pro Bowl. He would start.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
I just heard that he's better than Jimmy Smith. What do you mean? That's great.
Jimmy Smith currently?
He's been way better than I thought he would be, but I still think you have to scale it on like a Jaguar scale. Like, yeah, he's been better than I thought he would be. It looks like he can be an average starter, you know, because I mean, I think a lot of people, myself included, I saw him get signed and I was like, that's a barely 53 rosterable guy. He's been better than that. You know, I say, you know, straight up, he's been significantly better than that. He kind of had a slow start to camp, but once he started getting going and him and Trevor built a connection, I think that he can definitely have a year that doesn't make his contract look stupid, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to go out there. You know, I've seen, you know, some projections, people like 1,000 yards for it, and that to me is kind kind of wild. You know, like
you're saying you think more than that, more than 1,000?
Oh yeah, no, he's a 2K guy. He's 2K.
I mean, let's not get carried away. I was thinking more like 16.
But really, if you think about it, Shipley said that he'd be in the Pro Bowl of Jaguars, which means he'd be outperforming our like mega superstar money man Christian Kirk.
I'll be honest. In training camp, I'm obviously not in the, you know, hustling and bustling streets of Flowery Branch, but from the training camp practices in Jacksonville, I thought Zay Jones was having a better camp than Christian Kirk. Kirk obviously went out there against the Steelers and saw 1 million targets and had a pretty good game, other than a terrible deep route. But other than that, Zay Jones, in my opinion, he had a better camp, I thought. Like Kirk is somebody I think maybe he just looks better in games, because I mean, he just you look at him and he doesn't look like a receiver that you just paid $70 million. You know, like physically, there's nothing that really stands out.
He's like a Press Taylor. I mean, that's how small he is. I walked next to him in Atlantic Beach when he first got here. I was like, God, that guy looks familiar. I looked at him again as I was passing him, like, as I was coming up to him, and as I was passing him, I looked at him again. Like, that's fucking Christian Kirk, and we were like eye to eye, you know. And I'm 6 foot, like on a good day, we were eye to eye.
It's not even like
he's 6 foot.
He's like small. You know?
I am 6 foot. Why is that so funny?
Dude, that was
laughing at Dillard.
That was funny.
I am 6 foot.
Are you really?
Yeah, I am really. Why is that a surprise to you?
Everybody below.
What do I fucking look like, JB?
No, but like JB plus.
Get the fuck out of here.
He said JB plus.
Get the fuck out of here. We're gonna have to end this episode. I'm not gonna stand for this kind of slander.
Oh, you're not gonna stand for nothing at 5'8". Chill.
Yeah, 5'8". Whatever, my guy.
Leave him and Tavon also.
Anyway,
Cap is definitively taller than Christian Kirk.
Bro, Cap said he walked by Christian Kirk and he was eye to eye, and y'all think he's 6 foot? Like, yeah.
This is hateful. This is hateful. This is hurtful.
Hey, but you said earlier the Christian Kirk route.
I'm muting Dillard. I have the power. I did that with my tiny hands.
You're like what's the around the horn? You can just mute people.
You can see me with a -3 Tony Reale up there. But no,
The short little fuckers. Tony Reale is like 5'2".
Don't miss. No, he ran a terrible route though when he lined up outside, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe Nate Tice was talking about his like share. He when he lines up inside, his success is like through the roof, and even like his DVOA as a receiver is like top 5. Inside.
Yeah, it was Nate Tice arguing with an extraordinary media member in Jacksonville. I'm pretty sure.
I just saw
So,
that.
I'm glad you brought that up. My short friend Eric Dillard. How do you see it? Like, I know they're talking about how they signed Christian Kirk to play all over, and they see him as a guy who can play on the outside too. By week 5, what do you think that's really going to look like? Are the bulk of his receptions, the bulk of his routes that he runs, are they going to come from the slot? Is that just inevitable?
Yeah, I don't think Doug Peterson's a stupid or like a stubborn guy who he's just going to keep trying it until it doesn't work. I really think the reason you saw so many Christian Kirk snaps outside the other night, and that reason I think we've seen so many in camp, because we have seen probably more than I think people would anticipate. He's been mostly in the slot, but there has been a good amount of outside stuff, is because somebody has to do it. I mean, for as much better as Zay Jones has been, than I think a lot of people, myself included, thought he was, there aren't many teams that would go out there and be like, okay, our 2 outside guys are Marvin Jones and Zay Jones, and feel good about it. I mean, it's just not going to happen in 2022. So I think putting Kirk on the outside is something you're going to see, especially they try to get some shots vertically, just because they need somebody who can kind of fulfill that role. I think it's obviously not a good role for him, because I mean, I think he just looks like such a different player outside versus in the slot. Like that deep route he ran outside, it looked like he was running a quicksand for some reason. That ball was in the air forever. He just couldn't get there to it. To the point where, a lot of people I know live, I thought the same thing until I rewatched it. I was like, okay, dang, Trevor missed by a good bit, but rewatch it, I was like, no, dude just couldn't get to it. But didn't you watch him in the slot? Another play, I think it was on one of the plays Trevor missed to him, like the second one, and he just completely put the dude in a blender. So, he's definitely quicker than fast. He's one of those slot types who, he'll get open against anybody in hand coverage. Just put him in space, and, he has the quick feet and he'll get open. But I definitely think that where you're going to see him thrive is in the slot. And I think most of his production is going to come from there. I think the Jaguars are going to know that, yeah, we'll have to put him outside from time to time, but we paid this dude to, be a volume guy from the slot. That's what I think he's going to.
They keep 6 wide receivers. Who are the last 3?
2 off the top of my head. So, okay, so Kirk, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, Jamal Agnew, Laquan Treadwell, so that Trevor Lawrence doesn't get in trouble with the wife. Treadwell, just because I think Lawrence and him have such good chemistry that if it comes down to another dude, the Jags staff's like, you want this dude or this guy? I think Trevor would probably go Treadwell. They're somebody they've built a rapport the last couple of years, and he's actually a pretty good run blocker.
He's fine as a 5th, 6th.
Yeah,
I was gonna say too. He, when you get to 5 and 6, those are guys that have to contribute on special teams.
Yeah,
and he's been willing, surprisingly. As a guy who came into the league as a 1st-round pick, the fact that the last couple of years that he's been a willing special teams kind of guy is, that's right. Let's be honest. That's probably the only reason he's still in the league, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that just, kind of right timing with the Jaguars last year, that they didn't have any outside guys last year. Good news for him. They once again have like 0 outside receivers. So I think that alone, could help him out. I'm torn on the last one. I think Laviska Shenault's going to make it. I think him and Treadwell are 2 guys who still have to fend off like Jeff Cotton and Tim Jones. Because, I mean, when you look at the Jaguars receivers, say they keep Agnew, Chenault, and Treadwell. They have one young receiver on the roster, and that's Chenault, who, let's be honest, if he's on the roster in 2023 week 1, it'd be a shock. It really feels like they're just kind of playing the string out with him for his third year, and he'll get replaced next year. If that's the case, you have no young receivers that you're developing, in the organization at all. And, you're going to go into next year needing several receivers, and you're going to be relying on, rookies. So if they want to keep a guy like Jeff Cotton or Tim Jones, second-year guys who, back-to-back years have had good camps, good preseasons, they're good enough to be, like a number 6 receiver. It wouldn't surprise me if they're like wanting to lean youth over experience, just because they have no youth. Marvin's old. Zay's been around for a bit. Kirk's been around for a bit. Jamal Agnew's been around for a bit. They're old at receiver.
So Fat Tony, I think it was Fat Tony today. I was listening to Jaguars Today with him and Dempsey, and he made a good point with Chenault on a couple of different areas. One, if he makes the team, he's probably number 6, and he's probably not active on game day because, as long as Agnew's healthy, especially, like he's just not going to be. But at the same time, Tony kind of was making the argument that he has value in the sense that if one of those top 3 guys go down, you feel okay if he's got to get some game reps, right? And if you've got to activate him for the following week, if one of those, God forbid, if Zay goes down, I don't want to say that, but God forbid, or
just cancel a game.
Well, yeah, you're telling me, buddy. No, so, and I thought those were interesting points, right? I mean, and I think he's dead on about, so that, I think that'll within itself is gonna probably raise some eyebrows, right? On September 11th, when they kick off against the terrible football team from Washington. If I were a betting man, and if he's on the roster, which I think he will be, I bet you he's inactive.
I think so too, because he's just at this point where he hasn't developed enough as a receiver. Like he's been catching passes from EJ Perry for the last week, which kind of, it normally, which quarterback you're running with kind of tells you your standing, with the offense and with the team and on the depth chart. And 2, I get the sense that they kind of view him and Jamal Agnew similar in terms of how they have to be used. And both at punt return and at receiver, who would you rather have on the field? I mean, it's probably it's Agnew, which is wild to say after, Chenault legitimately was solid as a rookie. But, 2 years later, Agnew is probably the guy you'd rather have out there. So I'm with you. I think he's number 6. I haven't seen him take like any outside snaps in camp this year. He's been like slot only. And they try to do some of that running back type stuff with him early on in camp where they would just try to give him carries, and it was terrible every time. Like it just doesn't work. And I honestly like feel bad for it, because it seems like, there was a situation where there was a lot of potential once upon a time. And it just doesn't seem like anything's happening with it. So I do think he sticks around for a year, plays a little bit, and then next year they restock at receiver. Obviously with Marvin probably moving on, and he'll be the odd man out.
That dude had an offer from LSU and chose to go to Colorado. We should have known then he wasn't cut out to be anything special.
Wow.
Frank the Tank.
Is that a Jaguar?
It's got a Jaguar. Look.
Frank the Tank.
Frank the Tank. My man.
New member named after Frank Frangie.
Shout out Frank Frangie on the bold takes.
We have a very recent customer review for our partner, A1 Sliders, where you can get a free estimate at a1sliders.com. Call them 387-538-6835. Our very own Mr. 10,000, the Dillical.
So I go over to my sister's house today. She's putting her house on the market on Friday, and I notice I don't hear anything. And I realized she got her sliding glass door fixed. So shout out to the guys at A1 Sliders for rolling through and taking care of that.
Guaranteed she's going to get an extra 10% when she sells her house because she's got a badass sliding glass door.
Facts.
Guaranteed.
Hey, quiet. That's what her sliding glass door sounds like right now.
That was smooth.
Boom.
That was smooth.
Again, the website, a1sliders.com. They do work from New Smyrna Beach up to Jacksonville, and they will give you a free estimate if your sliding glass door sucks like Dillard's sisters used to.
What's the number?
386-538-6835.
Boom. A1 sliders. John, speaking of beloved individuals in the city of Jacksonville, why all of a sudden does the entire coaching staff hate Dan Arnold?
I think that the idea that Dan Arnold is good was like viewed from the whole he was good for a 3-14 Jaguars team. I don't think he's actually, when you watch him during practice or, during the games, a lot of drop passes, doesn't offer anything as a blocker. He has good speed, not like great speed, like nobody's Kyle Pitts, but I mean, he's not out there, outrunning really anybody, So I think I think the role he's in, honestly, is the role he should have always been in, which is like, number 3 tight end, second pass catcher. So I know a lot of people have been confused, but it would shock me. I've had people ask me, like, do you think Dan Arnold can, like overtake Evan Ingram? Nothing I've seen has, like, Evan Ingram, they're going to give him every chance to earn that contract he had. Like, it doesn't matter, like, what happens. Dude just keeps getting thrown out there. They keep throwing passes to him. So I honestly think Arnold being, number 3 tight end is a good thing for the Jaguars, because, I mean, if he was your best tight end coming into the season, then your offense probably sucks.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. So, I think Dougie P, known as a tight end guy, big fan of the tight ends, much like Solly. Christian Kirk is actually tall. I'm taller than Dillard. I don't know what you're talking about.
Or I literally look over your head for every football.
No, that's just because you're that high, my guy. It's because you're always that high. Like, what are you talking about? You're floating in the clouds.
How tall is Christian Kirk's, like, actual, like, height measure?
Height. Let's look. How tall is Christian Kirk?
That's terrible. That's going to sound so bad on the podcast.
Christian Kirk is 5'11".
Can't see.
With cleats on.
Yeah, almost 6 foot. See?
Yeah. So, dude, 5'11", 6 foot. It's all the same thing, my guy.
He's 5'11" and an eighth, just like Cap.
Yeah, leave Cap with his lips out.
Jeez, bro. These guys.
Cap buys those soul inserts off Instagram.
Listen, I want the record to reflect that I'm trying to talk football. Okay, so all the people direct your angry tweets at E Dilla so he can mute you. 7,000 other people that he has muted on Twitter. All right, so go ahead.
Next pod, you're going to do a Pete Prisco and stand on like a wooden crate.
Dilla's over here acting like he's Tony Baselli.
Hey, Cap saw Prisco out in Jack's Beach and was like, it looked him eye to eye too.
Oh yeah. Yep, me and Lenny Curry, we're just standing back to back. Speaking of guys who look really short when they're on the field, though, Evan Ingram doesn't look like a tight end. What realistically, what kind of season do you see him having?
I think he's going to have like a lot of chances. He's going to have a lot of volume. That this offense, obviously, you said before, Doug Peterson, him and Solly, big fans of the tight end. I think that most of those targets, most of those chances are going to come through Evan Ingram. That even with the drop issues, like, yeah, even if he has drops during the regular season, which realistically is probably going to happen, who else are they going to turn to, in this place? They're not going to throw more passes to Chris Manhurst or Luke Farrell. It's Evan Ingram or Dan Arnold. Ingram has been the better player, throughout all of camp, even with the drops. I mean, when the Jaguars get in the red zone, the only player they have who I've seen in camp have the ability to, like, go up and, like, get the ball in the air, like a contested situation or whatever, has been Ingram. Like he's had the worst drops of camp, and he's also had, like, out of the 5 best catches of camp, he's probably had 2 or 3 of them. So I think he's definitely going to get a lot of volume. It wouldn't surprise me if he got, like, north of, like, honestly 80 targets. It really wouldn't surprise me if he saw something closer to like 90, 95, because I just think, when you look at their passing game weapons, who else are they going to go to? They have Christian Kirk and they have Zay Jones. Yeah, they have ETN for as much as he's going to get used in the passing game. But, it's not like they have, like a bounty of receivers to you throw it to. So I wouldn't surprise me if he's like an okay in real life player and a pretty good fantasy type.
Yeah, that makes sense too as well. Last tight end question, I promise. Are Luke Farrell's parents really that nice? I mean, does he really come from that good of a family? Have you dug deep into that one, or?
I actually met them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I met them during training camp. I met what is it? I met Walker Little's parents. They like shouted at me from the sidelines, and I had no idea who it was at first. And they kept saying John. I'm like, who the hell is that? And then got to talk to them. They're like, hey, if we go, we want you to meet Luke Farrell's parents. And that was what kept going through my head. And honestly, great people. They were delightful. Yeah, they're good people. I see why it was an easy recruiting pitch. Yeah, they were like you're the one who writes the really long articles about practice, right? I was like, yeah. So they're avid readers. So big Luke Farrell parent fan.
I love it. Great people from the Midwest. We were just up in the in northeastern Ohio ourselves. Great people up there.
Gorgeous place.
Beautiful place. We talk more about it, but this is strictly a football podcast. So let's get back to the football. So is true or false, Travon Walker is the best football player you've ever seen on a football field? And why is it true?
False. Because I've seen Trent Baalke walking around the field, and I know he used to play some linebacker. No, man, Travon, I think, Dylan, you said something like at the Hall of Fame game, you guys saw him from the stands. Like, he's just somebody that once you see him in person, you're like, holy crap, man! Like,
it's really hard to block that.
Yeah, like that's just how it is. Like the first time I saw him in person, it was like at rookie minicamp or whatever. I mean, it's rookie minicamp. Nothing happens at all.
Right.
Dude's a Greek god, man.
This fucking arm right here that he puts out is problematic.
Bro, we walked into the stadium at the Hall of Fame game, and these two guys went over to like look at the not the concession stand, the like merchandise booth. And I like walk up, and the defense is like working out right in front of us. And I literally saw him make one move, and I was like, oh my God. I immediately left and went and found them and was like, bro, I just saw Travon. That he's that dude. Like, I was like, look at this video. Like, this shit's crazy.
Yeah. No, he literally, it feels like every time he takes the field, he does at least one thing. You're like, Jesus Christ, where'd they find this dude? The thing I keep coming back to is, as exciting as he looks, in games now, you can tell that he still kind of has not really much of an idea what he's doing yet because, playing outside linebacker. And like, this is objectively probably the worst he's ever going to be. And if this is the worst he's ever going to be, he's still like running over dudes, completely bulldozing them and, making plays. Like against the run, whenever he comes like from the backside, he runs and like closes like a freaking middle linebacker, dude. Like it doesn't make sense. So I think this is probably like the least productive and worst version you're going to get of him. And it's still, you're like, holy shit, half the time.
Yeah. He's still taking up a lot of attention too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I tweeted out a play that, he didn't get a sack or anything on, but he stunted inside. He just completely bulldozed the guard into Kenny Pickett's face. And I'm like, yeah, that's literally just him being bigger, stronger, and faster than the guy across from him. And so I think he'll get sacks this year just by being free.
Compare that to how you felt about him as a prospect, right? Because like going back to the draft time, like I think a lot of people felt similarly to you, right? In the sense that maybe there wasn't a no-brainer generational quote unquote guy for the Jags to take at 1 overall. And I know you weren't necessarily a Aiden Hutchinson believer, especially at 1, right? As a guy that you take 1 overall. Your feelings about him as a prospect and now seeing him on an NFL field for a training camp and a few snaps, like how does that compare?
Yeah. Ever since that Billie Jean Hard Knocks video came out, but Travon's stock has gone, like they made the right pick. I saw Hutchinson do a press conference and that face camo he does. I'm just like, they made the right pick. These guys know what they're doing. No,
Bulky masterclass.
Exactly. I think I had. I'm trying to remember exactly where he was. He was either like my number 5 or my number 6 player, and I had him, Hutchinson, and Thibodeau all like the way I do it when I like rank players is I do it on tiers. So I'm like, okay, if you're like the first guy in a tier and the 10th guy in a tier, you can be interchangeable. So it really doesn't matter. So I had them all like kind of tiered the same. My personal preference was Thibodeau first, and after seeing him take on that cut block from Randy Moss's son, I probably moved him down a couple until he kind of puts his big boy pads on. But my opinion on Walker, as a prospect was, I mean, more or less kind of similar to how I feel now. Like, obviously, when I see him now, I'm more like, okay, this dude is like learning one move away from being like a consistent double-digit sack guy. I believe he's closer to making an impact now than I probably did when he was a prospect. But my opinion on him as a prospect was that, yeah, there's literally no example in NFL history of a guy being this big, this explosive, this physical, and not being at least an okay player, because it's not like he was a workout warrior who, was a puss during games and, it didn't show on the film. Like, no, I mean, dude was a badass during games. He obviously didn't get a lot of sacks, but, he punched people in the mouth and the athleticism showed. So I feel better about him now than I did as a prospect, but I still really liked him as a prospect. And I know, it's a controversial pick. They got killed for it outside, but I mean, I've seen them make several other picks since I've been covering them, and I felt at the time that even then that I was like, okay, this is a way better pick than C.J. Henderson was at the time. Way better pick than Chase Hall. I think it's a better pick than Travis Etienne was. Just look at it as at the time how I feel. So I felt then that it was a good pick, and I feel even better about it now. Honestly.
Cool.
Let's talk about ETN, by the way. The run game has kind of been looking a little suspect. What's your thoughts there?
I think part of it is the running game is such like a way I kind of described it is it's kind of like a symphony. You have so many moving pieces where in a passing game, like the Bengals again, the passing game, the Bengals can have 8 players completely vomit all over themselves on a certain play. But if Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are locked in, then it doesn't matter, Jackson Carman getting ran over, whatever. But the running game, if you have one dude mess up, then the whole play is, probably screwed. And when you have so many new pieces in there, if you are working together, like, rookie center, 2 different guys who are trying things out at left guard, guys constantly rotating right tackle, a new right guard, and then basically 2 rookie running backs in ETN and Snoop Connor. I think that the running game is just something that, it's going to take some time. I know ETN, in my opinion, looked a lot better against the Steelers than he did against the Browns. The numbers definitely didn't show it. His numbers sucked both games, but I thought against the Steelers, he was a lot more disciplined. He broke tackles in both games, but he didn't try to bounce things outside. Against the Browns, it was like a it's like a pet. Like you just wanted to spray him with the bottle every time he did. Like stop it, no, don't do that.
Hit him on the nose with the newspaper.
Yeah, exactly. Like no, don't do that. But it looked like he improved at that against the Steelers. But again, that was something that he's looked in the preseason how he looked coming out of Clemson to me. Honestly, like he's a guy who sometimes he'll get too impatient. He'll try to do that, like spin like with his back to the defense type thing. So he's definitely looked like he did at Clemson. That's not like a bad thing because it's still super exciting, can make a lot of plays. But I do think the running game is missing that James Robinson type, that dude who, you can run inside zone. He's going to get 7 or 8 plays, put you in 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. I think that's what they're missing right now because while I think ETN is going to be a good player, I don't think he's that kind of guy right now.
What kind of
Go ahead.
I was going to say, what kind of volume do you think is realistic for James Robinson in like week 1, week 2, week 3? I mean, because he just fucking tore his Achilles like last month.
Yeah, no, honestly, you watch him at practice or you talk to him, and it doesn't seem like it was like thing that even happened. Like, he's making cuts. He's freaking spinning. He's catching passes out the backfield, running routes. He's doing pass protection stuff. And then, I talked to him after practice the other day, and I had it in a story I posted. He's literally like, I know I could do more, and they know I could do more, but right now I'm not. You could tell he kind of wanted to be like, let me go out there and actually practice.
Yeah.
Let me go play. So I think he's honestly, by the time week 1 comes around, that he's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a Cam Akers situation where he's looking terrible when he gets back out there, because I mean, one, Cam Akers needed to be fast. He needed to be explosive. James, objectively, for as good as he is, he can't get like much slower, in terms of like his long speed. I don't think it's like an injury that's really going to hurt his game that much. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe the first couple of games they kind of eased him into it. Maybe you see him get 8 to 10 touches, but I still think he'll be on the field a good bit, because I think when it comes to, it's third down, Washington's bringing pressure, you need a running back in the game to pass protect, and you're looking at him, ETN or Snoop Connor. I think it's a no-brainer who you trust.
Right. Makes
So
sense.
I think he plays a decent amount. ETN, I think, out-touches him early on, but I do think as the season gets going, like if I had to pick, who's the running game going through, who's running back 1, I think it's James Robinson. I really do.
Plug your so you just had a story up on him a couple of days ago, right? And
Yeah. Well, I basically was just catching up with him, being like, what's the actual like area of time that you're looking to get back? And he said week 1 for a while. And I asked him, is week 1 still your goal? And he was like, yeah, week 1 has been my goal the whole time. That hasn't changed. And the biggest thing was when he told me that he feels like he could be doing even more, and that they're just playing it safe with him right now. So you do get the sense that they could kind of take the training wheels off of him and let him go, but they're just not doing that right now, because I mean they don't have to. But
yeah, what's the point?
I think and I think though the fact that you're seeing him in a lot of team stuff over the last 2 weeks, if he wasn't going to play against Washington in week 1, I don't know why you'd be wasting the time, doing that. Like him and ETN literally, from the practices I saw the last 2 weeks, not in Georgia, but the ones in Jacksonville, him and ETN were literally, taking turns with the first team offense. So I don't think you'd be seeing that if he wasn't going to play week 1.
They keep 3 running backs. Snoop's the third. Do they keep a fourth?
I think they keep 4 just because Doug likes to use, you look back at his days at the Eagles, he likes to use 3 running backs on game day, like actually use them, like all of them play a little bit. So I think you want to keep 4 just to have some depth there, just because, you have James and Travis. Obviously, Travis's injury is different because it happened at a way earlier time, but you still have 2 guys coming off injuries. You have a rookie in Snoop. So I think they keep 4. I think Raquel Armstead is probably going to be the 4th guy, but that could also be a position I'd see them, put in a waiver claim.
Waiver. Yeah. It was
shout out to Dave Caldwell, the Raquel Armstead.
I mean, I honestly hope Armstead makes the team, because I think that'd be a badass story. Like, gets drafted, gets COVID, gets cut, comes back a couple years later, completely new team, and ends up making.
Yeah. Is, in your opinion, from what you've seen thus far, was Snoop Connor worth a draft pick?
I think he was worth a draft pick, because I think he has shown some things where you can at least think that he can develop into, at least a serviceable backup, maybe a spot starter. But I know there are a lot of theories when he got drafted. People are like, okay, that's the James Robinson replacement. Robinson's contract's obviously up soon. I don't think he's shown enough for anybody to really make any proclamations like that. So maybe things look different in the regular season. I think he was definitely worth a draft pick. I don't know if he was worth trading up for, at that point in the draft. I don't know if he was even, I'd have to look at the other running backs drafted when he got taken, but he's not the worst running back I've ever seen. I'll say that, he's pretty easily the 3rd best running back on the roster. It'd be different if like Armstead and Becky Sargent were looking better than him. Then I'd be like, okay, shit, these guys miss. But no, you can tell, he's clearly the 3rd best guy they have.
Word. Offensive line, John Shipley. Is it going to suck?
It's going to be perfectly okay.
Yeah, like that's genuine observation.
Exactly. I think it's going to be perfectly. I think you add in Trevor and how much he can help an offensive line, because I thought he made their offensive line look better at times last year. I think that you can have an offensive line that at least passing game produces like a top 16 to 18 unit. The running game, I'm not so sure about, just because, you have a rookie center. Who knows if the winner at right tackle is actually going to be a good starter. Same with left guard. And Cam, it was wild, man. Cam was having the season, I mean, the camp of his life. Literally looked dominant. And it wasn't against, it wasn't like he was just going against Chase On or Jameer Jones or something. Like he was shutting down Josh Allen. Like Travon Walker hasn't beat Cam all camp. But then the preseason game started, and half the plays, it looks like he's blocking the wrong guy. So I think he's gonna beat Cam Robinson. He's gonna be fine. The difference, I think, in them being okay as opposed to below average is I think you have the second or third best guard in football. I think Brandon Sheriff, he's that dude. Anybody who has PTSD from Andrew Norwell flopping, I completely understand. But Norwell was nowhere near as good as Carolina as Sheriff was with Washington. And just from what I've seen from Sheriff in games and in camp, and I covered Norwell for a couple of years, it's not even close. It's not even close. I think Sheriff's that dude. He's to me is maybe the best, and this is my fourth year covering him, the best player I've seen.
So let's talk about
Jalen Ramsey, but I was there for like a cup of coffee. It's like my second week on the job, and Jalen requested a trade.
Welcome to Jacksonville, John.
He was here for a cup of coffee too.
Exactly.
But left guard, let's talk about it. Ben Barch, Shatley, the new guy they traded for, whose name I don't know.
I glad you mentioned that. I did a story on him the other day, and right before I published it, I was like, let me check his last name. I wrote his last name like 12 times in the story, the headlines. It was wrong every single time. I'm not going to get this. Like Cole Van Lanen or something like that. I mean, he looks like a dude that went to Wisconsin and played for the Packers.
Cole Van Buren.
Exactly.
Week one, who's the starter at left guard?
I think Ben Barch is. I think that's going to be, in my opinion, every offensive line except for the really good ones has that one weak spot, and I think that's probably going to be a left guard for them. Barch had a better game against the Steelers than Shatley had against the Browns, but still, it's that Jaguar scale where he looked okay for the Jaguars, which means he's probably around below average. And I know he's somebody they were really excited about coming into the season, but I mean, just my personal opinion, he was on the ground a lot against the Steelers. That's the issues he's had. His first couple of years, dude's always seemingly has the balance issues. So maybe in that third year he kind of grows and takes a step. But I think he's a starter. I honestly think Casey McDermott being one of the worst centers in football during training camp kind of made that happen too, because I mean they've moved Shatley to backup center because they had nobody else on the team other than him and Fortner who could snap the ball. Like McDermott in one practice in training camp had like 4 botched snaps, and they had a couple during the Raiders game. They tried another dude, Darrell Williams, and he had a couple. And that's when they ended up just moving Shatley to second team center. Like I get the vibe that was partially because him and Barch are even at guard, but they have nobody else who can snap the ball. So I think it's going to be Barch and Shatley in like emergency situations.
It's funny that you talk about the like 1 weak spot on the offensive line, because last year you could have said it was Ben Barch at right guard, and this year it'll be Ben Barch at left guard. So shout out to Ben Barch and being that guy.
Ben Barch.
Smoothie boy.
And I'll be honest, I don't think it's completely out of the question for him to take a leap this year either. Because I mean, it's his third year after going to Bowles University, whatever, university he went to. And, it's normally a third year when these dudes, like, if they're going to be a dude, they start showing it. So maybe he plays better in the season than he did in the regular season. But I think left guard could be, that kind of question mark on the offense.
I got you. And I know last year, and I get the same kind of feeling this year. They just have a more dominant player in Sheriff at right guard overall. But the offensive line last year seemed just like extremely middle of the road, and they were low variant. They kind of gave you the same performance every week. You know what I mean? The same number of goofs, the same number of Trevor Lawrence saving them and making them look better in the stat sheet. And I think that you'll see that this year, but kind of like you were just touching on, it's the third year for some of those guys, or the first year of a second contract for a Cam Robinson coming off the franchise tags. Maybe it'll just kind of gel at the right time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can see the scheme that they have, and kind of Doug's play calling helping them out a lot too. Because I mean, the offensive line, they didn't get help from the scheme last year. their scheme last year was it was like ass Madden. They're just throwing random plays against the wall. Whereas this year, they're actually, you can tell, they have a scheme and a running game that they're doing. So I think stuff like that could actually help them this year as opposed to last year.
Is having real coaches actually good?
It's hard to say. It's looking like it might be. I'll be honest. I'm missing the winner loser days where you can see the starting X receiver and starting middle linebacker block each other in special teams drills. That was good stuff. But
very relevant stuff.
Yeah. When you can see Joe Sherbert and Tim Tebow block each other drill, that's when you're getting something out of training camp.
Got out Joe.
People have to pay for that.
Should have been the red flag then. That should have been the red flag.
Jesus Christ.
Joe Sherbert's had more jobs than me in my whole life in the last 3 weeks.
I refuse to believe that Urban Meyer ever played football after I looked at him in his khaki shorts and his polo tucked in with his twig legs looking like he's never done a squat in his entire fucking life. I don't know. I'm sorry. That just came to my mind when you brought it up. And
no, every time I heard the guy talk, I'm like, this guy was one of the best college coaches ever. What? And it was actually a funny story. I won't use any names or whatever, but I coach Pop Warner football, in Orange Park, and somebody I coach with, he's goes way back with a corner who used to play for Ohio State, and that corner was entering his senior year right after Urban left. And he had put in the papers to declare for the draft. Urban ends up stepping down. And he takes them out. He's like, "Oh no, Urban's gone. I'm staying in school, man. Screw that." And I'm like, bro's literally turning down money. He would have been a higher draft pick if he left, just because Urban Meyer was gone. And I'm like, bro, I've heard that from so many Ohio State people. They're like, this dude was absolutely awful, useless. And I'm like, what did he say in that interview? With Shad Khan that. I don't know. I tried to forget the Urban Meyer era. I had somebody tweet at me last week all mad. They're like, you guys still keep talking about Urban. I'm like, did I cover the worst head coach in NFL history? I'm going to talk about it till I die, dude. It was terrible. Man. It was that bad.
Well, the funniest part of all that too is his tenure wasn't that long.
13 games.
He won more games than Mike Mularkey.
I mean, that's how bad he was, that he got that distinction so easily and so rightfully, and he didn't even finish a full season. I mean, it just, yeah. Appreciate you coming on, man. A few more questions for you here. We'll keep firing them away. Is Fortner going to be good?
I honestly think that center is a position where you can tell pretty early on, especially in the preseason game, if this dude can hang around or not. That dude with the Vikings, Bradbury, whatever, he was getting his ass kicked his entire rookie year. And he's still terrible now. And you could have called, it them. In his first training camp, the dude was terrible. And there were definitely some, I'd say scary moments Fortner with that in training camp. You see him in the one-on-ones that everybody posts. And the reason why so many one-on-one videos are posted is because there are 4 periods of practice where you can take videos. 2 of them are warm-ups and one of them is special teams. So if you're going to post anything, that's literally the only exciting thing. So I understand why people post every single one-on-one they see, is because there's nothing else to put out there on Twitter for fans. But I also think it's so different from in games, because Luke Fortner, he's literally like a blocking sled in one-on-one drills, dude. Everybody he goes against, they just he looks like he weighs 230 pounds and they just blow by him. But then, I watched the last 2 games and there's not a single instance of that, just because there are so rarely instances where he'll ever be blocking, just a dude playing one-on-one, zero help or anything like that with a quarterback who's not moving. So I definitely get why the one-on-ones would scare fans, because they do look legitimately that bad. I know that one with Devon Hamilton where it looked like he was literally, on ice and he was just sliding back, and you can hear Rauscher in the background being like, "Anchor, Luke, anchor." Yeah, I get why,
fucking trying here, coach. God
exactly.
damn.
I get why that concerned people. but I haven't seen anything from him in the games. Like in the games, like the dude looks like he belongs. He was really good against the Browns, and everybody I talked to with the team, they're like, yeah, this dude's legit in terms of, you know, you don't have to treat him like a rookie, you know, like put training wheels on him, and just in terms of like the protection stuff, like he's actually a smart dude. So I think he's going to end up being okay. It wouldn't surprise me if there are some times this year where you're like, holy crap, this dude just got completely destroyed on this play. But
Is he okay?
I think, yeah, I think in the long run, I think he's gonna be a good player. I mean, I liked him coming out. I thought it was a good pick. I still like him, you know, now.
You know, he has 2 master's degrees.
He does. He's older too. I think he's like 24. I remember somebody asked Trevor about, you know, having a rookie center, and he was like, well, he's a rookie, but he's actually like 2 years older than me. I was like, that's so. I mean, he's older. He's played a lot of football at Kentucky, and another thing is he played in a really similar scheme at Kentucky in his last year. The Jaguars run now, like running scheme. Their coordinator then is now the offensive coordinator with the Rams. And the Rams running game is kind of that whole Bill Callahan inside, outside, wide zone thing. So I think there's a lot of similarities there.
Nice. Are you disappointed in Walker Little if he doesn't win the job at right tackle?
I don't think so, because I think in my view, him and Jawaan Taylor have been even, you know, this preseason. And I know, you know, on the outside, you know, fans, reporters like me, you're like, okay, these 2 guys are even. Start the guy who you have on the contract for the next 2 years. Whereas I think coaches, you know, guys who, you know, want to, like, you know, they're looking more at right now, you know, like they don't give a damn about 2023 right now. You know, they care about the Washington, whatever the hell they're called, in week 1. And I think if you're a coach, it makes sense if you're like, okay, these 2 guys are even. Let me go with the experienced guy. You know, like that's why I think Jawaan Taylor is going to end up starting. But no, I honestly think Walker Little's been better at right tackle than I honestly kind of thought he was to start, like that he was going to be, because I thought it was going to be more of a transition for him. Because I mean, not only has he played left tackle his whole life, but I mean, he's only started, you know, 3 football games like the last 3 years. So, you know, he already has a really small sample size, and now you're asking him to switch to the other side, and it's not like it, man, dude. It's not easy. Like you ask any tackle who's done it, it's not easy at all. But I honestly think the fact that he looks even with Jawaan Taylor is honestly a good sign for him. The fact that, you know, Jawan's started, you know, almost 50 games at right tackle, and he doesn't have like a clear lead on him, I think is actually a good sign for the little one. You know, I think Jawan starts week 1, but I don't think the guy starts all 17 games. I think you're going to see both of them this year.
Yeah. The Jacksonville Jaguars Hall of Famer Tony Baselli says that he still has high hopes for Walker Little overall. And I think his analysis was he's just got to get better at using his hands. A lot of the issues he's had thus far have been hand placement, being late, getting his hands, you know, on the guy, so on and so forth. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing because I think a lot of fans wanted to pump him up. You know, originally some people were like, oh, well, you know, slide him over to left tackle right this year and let him walk. And so I think you're already seeing a little bit of that because I think the consensus from the folks that cover the team and watch it closely is that Jawaan probably starts week 1. He's probably the guy who wins the job, right? And what you're seeing a little bit of, at least I am, is a little bit of hand wringing about Walker Little. It's like, you know, what does that say about him that he couldn't beat out Jawaan Taylor? Because we know what Jawaan is, right? Like as fans, that's what you think. Like, you know what he is and what he's been the last few years. But, you know, I think those are all good points that you make as far as, you know, how little time he's had with it. And, you know, do you think ultimately he could be a future right tackle, or do you think he's a guy who's destined to compete for a left tackle spot or be a swing tackle?
I mean, with him, for right now, it's got to be right tackle. But I do think that he can be a starting caliber right tackle. Like, I think they could roll out there with him at right tackle in week 1 and win. Like, yeah, TJ Watt, you know, beat his ass on 1 rep, but I mean, it's TJ Watt. You know, like they were throwing like extra protection TJ Watt's way of that game. on pretty much every other play, for a reason. And just the life of an offensive lineman, you're going to be remembered more for your bad plays than, for your good blocks. So I do think he can, like, I legitimately think he could start at right tackle this year. Like I personally would probably start him because I do think it's been that even. And if it's that even after Jawan's had several years at right tackle, then maybe Little has more upside. But I do think he ultimately can be, that guy. And I think any of the hand wringing about, what it says about Walker Little, I think it's more, what does it say about the Jaguars' plans, like when they drafted him? Like, did you draft him at number 45 with like no actual idea of, how you're gonna get this dude on the field? Because that's what it kind of looks like right now.
That would be fair.
Yeah, and that's nothing against Walker Little. It's just if he doesn't start this year, people are upset about the usage of that pick. I think that's more on the people that made the pick than it is on the player.
Are you suggesting that there might have been a little bit of a disconnect between Trent Baalke and Urban Meyer?
They thought Travis Etienne was a wide receiver. I'll put it at that. And I remember Urban said that, and then we asked Travis, like, tell us about Clemson running routes. Like, we only really ran 3 routes at Clemson. What are you guys doing, man?
What are you doing?
They didn't get Kadarius Toney, and then they just sorted the entire draft by the next fastest 40 time, and they were like, he's going to be a receiver. We're going to figure it out.
That's how I drafted.
Well, I think that's the college coming out in old herbs, right? I mean, it's like, oh, you think that you're a wide receiver? No, you're actually a safety. Go over there now. Like, yeah, okay. I don't think it really works the same way. Herb, if you're planning ahead and you're making Boz part of that plan, he'll be there. Doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah,
he'll be there. Just plan ahead. So commit his number to memory and plan ahead. Don't be like Antonio Brown. Don't be left standing outside in your goofy boots and your skinny jeans, looking like a peasant, waiting for somebody to pick you up outside in New Jersey, of all places. You can't look like that in New Jersey. Boz wouldn't let you look like that in New Jersey.
Could you imagine walking out of your job and a black tinted window like Suburban pulls up and just picks you up and you just roll away looking like the president?
And so take a page out of Trevor Lawrence's book. After he, got done listening to our last episode, he called Boz and hooked up his lady, sent Marissa down with all her homies to the stadium in a huge party bus. So shout out to Boz.
Boz.
Yeah. All right. Moral of the story: call Boz. Sally, what's the number?
904-887-0763. Or if you're a Jags Twitter person, Jax Boz at Jax Boz. Hop in his DMs.
Okay. Moral of the story: if he's good enough for Trevor Lawrence's lady, he's damn sure good enough for you. Call Boz. Ship. We touched on defense a little bit, but before we let you go and go to sleep,
Arden Key 10 sacks.
10 sacks.
Let's talk about the most fun position group on the team.
The kicker.
That D-line, baby. That D-line. Is there anything better than having like fun people on the defensive line?
It's by far, like, if you're gonna have, like, to me, if you're gonna stock up at any positions that's gonna be fun, it's like wide receiver and defensive line. And
yeah,
they legitimately, I mean, like Walker, Allen, and then Smoot and Key on third down. Last year it was like Allen and Smoot on the outside, and then Jihad Ward, like Adam Johnson. like just comparing, they're like third down defense this year to last year. It's crazy how much better it's gotten. Key is, I really think, as things go on and, Key gets, some microphones and cameras more in his face, and, it's an open, like, everybody loved DJ Hayden because, back then it was an open locker room. We'd get a video a week of DJ Hayden being, funny as hell. I think you can see Key kind of become that fan favorite now because, I mean, dude's just funny as hell. Most energetic guy. I think Peterson said the other day, he's like, he's always in a good mood for some reason. And I'm like, bro, this is the Jaguars. Nobody's ever always in a good mood. And, yeah, dude just is.
When are they going to?
Come on, it's hurts, but it's true. It's true.
When are they going to resign him to a longer deal? How many games in?
Let's see. I should know when the bye week is around then. whenever that is.
Yeah, right. Dude. He's gonna have about 6.5 sacks by then. He's gonna be like, the price done went up, fellas.
Price of the brick going up.
Yep, the price going up.
But
I find him intriguing. I don't know if it was you who wrote about it, Ship, or if it was a couple different people, or if he just mentioned in an interview, but he's talked a couple times, I think, about like how his time in San Francisco was like getting a doctorate in defensive line play.
Like
And
doing
I would
shrooms.
what's
like,
that?
I said it's like doing shrooms. It's enlightening. It's really
Just like that. Yep.
turns the light bulb on.
Hey, no drugs here. It's only football. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Dilla. Thanks. I think it's exactly what Arden Key said is playing in San Francisco is like doing shrooms. Any comment on that?
Bosa's problem.
That's Bosa's problem, among other things. I don't know. I'd love to just kind of hear more about that because I always find it interesting when because you talk about parity in the NFL and there's good coaches and good players and all this stuff. So when you've got a team like San Francisco, I guess, and I don't know who their D-line coach is, it escapes me, but just you're seeing some guys come out of there that are just dogs. And so to hear him say, like, and I loved when he was talking about it, he's like, they're like, I'm not going to stand for this shit, like where people are okay with mediocre. That wasn't okay where I came from. So I don't know. I want whoever their coach is, I want to hire him. How do we get Shad's got a lot of money? How do we bring that guy over?
No, I mean that's exactly what I mean. There was one practice in like the middle of training camp where I like walked away from the team period being like, damn, the defense kind of kicked the offense's ass. And then you look over and somebody has got the whole defense together. He's just like ripping them a new one, like completely like dropping lots of words. I'm not gonna repeat on air. And I was like, damn, I thought the defense was actually, good today. And it ended up being Arden Key. It ended up he was telling them like, in not such an eloquent way that, if like you said, where I came from, we don't settle for mediocrity. We don't settle for not doing anything on first 2 downs and waiting for the 3rd down. So I think he's definitely somebody who, to me, it's important you sign guys from, winning teams, winning cultures. Like I think there's definitely something to drafting guys from winning teams, guys who simply didn't really lose all that often because they can kind of bring that culture, that expectation. He's definitely, in my opinion, has brought that. And you can see San Francisco, saved his career because I remember him coming out of LSU. I remember him with Oakland. He was objectively, not a good player, with the Raiders. He flamed out there for a reason. And, he was a revelation with San Francisco last year. He kind of still went, luckily for the Jaguars, a little bit under the radar because he's still kind of that rotational pass rusher guy. I think now he's kind of in the spot where he can take advantage of, the right timing and everything. But San Francisco, to me, saved his career. And if you're a defensive lineman and you want to go somewhere, and produce, I think that's where you want to go. And if on the flip side, if you're signing a San Francisco defensive lineman who didn't do anything there, like Solomon Thomas or something, you probably should be, asking yourself a couple questions. But I think you can definitely see the San Francisco influence with him.
How do we is there an option to loan, like in soccer? Can we loan Kayvon Chason to San Francisco for like a season or for the first half of the season? Can we just can he go there and go to grad school for a little bit? Is that possible?
Are there like killer bees over there or something?
Be like a work study program, wouldn't it? Like
baby shark.
No, that shit was funny. And every fucking beat is when he turned.
Man, leave my guy alone. At least he was out there.
He's
working.
trying.
He's trying.
He's working.
Some people were like,
he wasn't doing nunchucks like Derek Harvey.
He was literally running in the sand, but not at the beach. He was like in Florida. Like, get the guy out of here, man.
Chip, should they be worried about depth on the interior, like on early downs? Because any backup, I feel like as soon as any backup has come into the game, the run defense just gone to shit.
No, it definitely has. That's something that's kind of been weird to me because I thought the interior was where, you had a lot of depth because, you got Smoot, Gotsis is, pretty solid backup. Malcolm Brown, was there for a little bit. Everybody kind of thought of him as, if he's a backup, then that's awesome. But Jay Tefele is somebody who I thought has gotten better over training camp. But then for whatever reason, once they get in games, they're getting pushed around. They miss a lot of tackles, both at the line of scrimmage and guys downfield. So I feel like just talent wise, they still have enough guys there. But like say with Foley Fatukasi, if he misses any time with his calf injury, I think that like that's a worry. Like okay, like shit, who are we gonna play there? Who's gonna make like an actual tangible impact? So I think like there are three starters, Hamilton, Robertson Harris, Roy Roberts, it's my mistake, and Fatukasi are, three guys that you can depend on. But then after that, I think you definitely see it kind of, you're going to see it with any position, but you just definitely see it kind of take a decline. So any injuries happen, I think it could be a pretty big issue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What about linebacker? I don't see how it's even possible Devin Lloyd plays week 1, but people are talking like he might. And but then I heard Lagerman talking about it. It's funny because he's like, look, it's going to be a minute for him because playing middle linebacker in the NFL is, not easy. And, he hasn't had any game reps. And just from a mental perspective, like, do you really think they run him out there week 1?
If he plays week 1, I think he's going to struggle. I mean, just because, we like for every rookie, like the game speed is just so insanely different. And that's why I think a good thing this staff has done is they've let the rookies play, in the preseason. They haven't had the training wheels on them or anything like that. You didn't really see that last preseason or, last year early in the season, because that even in the preseason, the speed of the game, you talk to every rookie and that's what's so different. And I think that's definitely something that he's going to have to adjust to. I mean, I think there's a reason Chad Muma, looked so different against the Raiders in the Hall of Fame game than he did against the Browns. Like it looked like he was, audibly during the game being like, holy shit, like these guys, don't play in the, whatever
Mountain West,
Mountain Sky or whatever the hell they call it.
Yeah. The Big Sky.
Whatever the hell they
Big
call
West.
it. Yeah, exactly. So I think that they do want him out there week 1, just because, I mean, for as much as Muma's improved, you can do a lot more with a fully healthy Lloyd than you can, with Muma, just in terms of like the different kind of stuff you can do, blitzes and coverages. So I do think they want him out there week 1. The way Doug talked today, though, before they held that practice, he made sure to emphasize, how far behind Devin is in terms of, that speed of the game and reps, and how far along Chad is. So it wouldn't surprise me if Lloyd's like active for week 1, but if he doesn't start until like week 2, week 3. Quay Walker looks awesome.
What's that?
Quay Walker looks awesome.
Shocking.
Yeah. A wide receiver would probably have been nice too, but
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Tyson Campbell, big second year.
Cornerback 1. He's a number 1 right now. Like and that's not like a knock on Shaq Griffin either. Like you could tell last year's training camp, like, okay, this dude's the veteran, this guy's the rookie. Campbell I think he's improved, from last year more than maybe any other player on the roster. Like, you already saw him improving last year, but training camp and preseason, he has just been different. Like there were times last year where you could tell, again, the speed of the game, like things are moving a little fast for him. I think that getting thrown in there against Jamar Chase, as a rookie, that probably did a number on his confidence for a little bit. But I mean, he looks like a different guy. I talked about Trevor, how Trevor's confidence seems like it's completely done a 180 this year. Campbell's another guy. I mean, yeah, him playing with swagger, him, talking trash after, he bodies a dude. That's not something you saw last year. Like I didn't know what his voice sounded like last year. Like he never talked bad. And then this year, he's one of the most talkative guys out there. He's walking around with an attitude because he can. He's been that dude so far.
Bulky masterclass.
He knew, man. And that's one thing I will say is Tyson Campbell was a Trent Baalke pick. The rumors back then was Baalke loved Tyson Campbell. And Tyson Campbell was the guy he was refusing to leave the draft without. So, hat tip to him on that one, because Campbell, he does look like he's. I don't have anything, but he does look like he's actually developing into like a legitimate number one.
All right, last position group that there is to talk about, right?
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Is Dewey making the squad? Yes or no?
He's going to be here far longer than any of us four. Yeah, he's making this team until he puts in his papers. He's Teflon, man. Yeah, no, he's making the team.
He's for sure making the Solly 53. I can guarantee you that.
I'll put it this: I have more confidence that Andrew Wingard's making the team than I do that Laviska Shenault's making it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which is wild to say.
One of them, he's even got better hands.
And I will say this: I'm all for Andrew Wingard making the team, just for his antics during training camp. Like, he will completely light into a ref about a call and be completely wrong, like not even close to being right, but just dropping F bombs. Like, are you effing blind? And I'm like, bro, you're wrong. What are you talking? He's a good soundbite in the background.
Awesome.
Like, to me, he's a guy who you don't mind being like the third or fourth safety. He's going to play special teams. The problem is, as Jaguar fans, we've had way too many of those guys who should be like the fourth safety who start 15 games in a season.
Like trying to cover Delaney Walker and shit.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody loved Andrew Wingard when he was an undrafted free agent rookie who was hanging around. Everybody loved him then. Nobody started to get annoyed with him or whatever until he was starting
until he played.
And dude, there were legitimately times last year where there'd be evidently Urban Meyer would show up, be like, why are there so many questions about Andrew Wingard? Like, what do people have against Andrew Wingard? And I'm like, nobody has anything against him. It's just so obvious, like, what his role should be. And this year, that's what his role is. He's a third safety, does a ton of stuff on special teams, and I think if he can stay in that role, that's actually a role that he can be serviceable in.
If you guys really want to get rid of him, Sally, all you and Dilla have to do is buy jerseys like you did for Chris Brzezinski, and he'll be on a boat right back to Wyoming.
I don't get it. Why does everybody hate Dewey so much? Well, we've seen him try to cover Jonnu Smith. That's why. Nobody should ever have to be subjected to this.
Cisco, the real deal?
I think so. I mean, some of the plays like I saw from him in camp where, he was the most physical dude on the defense. That includes like some physical guys, Travon Walker, Tyson Campbell, like they'll hit you. He to me, I think he's going to be somebody who, a good example was against the Steelers when one of the like middle school throws that Kenny Pickett made that everybody fawned over. It was like a slant to Deontay Johnson where, Cisco tried to go for the interception and he ended up just missing. And because of that, there was no way to tackle Johnson. He got like 18 or 19 yards. I think you're going to have plays like that because, you can tell dude's just itching to like create a turnover. But he's also a really good tackler, which they've had issues with at safety for forever, and he's a super sound tackler, really good in space. And two, he can actually correct himself and make those turnovers. Like some guys, they'll make those stupid plays where they're going for the ball and they'll never actually have a ball go their way and they'll never be able to make one and they're just a net negative. I think he can, like, for every bad play he has, I think he can make up for it with a big play.
Nice. Is Logan Cook the best punter you've ever seen?
Oh, it's not close. It's not. In fact, if it wasn't for how much respect I have for my friend Gene Fournette on the Logan Cook beat, I'd be all over more Logan Cook stories. But we
need more Logan Cook content, to be honest.
No, we don't. We got a new call on it.
He said no.
No, but John, you don't understand. The normal people need more. Nobody's reading the other content. Anyway, that was my words, not yours. Not John Shipley of Jaguar Report. That was Mr. 6 Foot of the Bold Take Pod. Is this kicker gonna stick, man? You know,
I don't even know. I've never even seen him in person. I'm not in Georgia, so I saw he was like a 71% college kicker. So if he didn't go to Illinois, you know, Conn University, who knows if they would have even knew he existed. I still think they're kind of just waiting on a dude who's on a roster right now. They were just, you know, over Santoso. Because I mean that last field goal against the Steelers, that wouldn't have been.
Yeah,
good
he's
for
easy
30.
to be.
That wouldn't have been good for 30. That was
We've
bad.
had some really bad kicker battles here over, I feel like, the last 10, 15 years, and this one might have been the worst. Like, I feel pretty comfortable saying that.
I think it honestly sucks that Elliott Fry got injured because he actually looked like he could maybe not be good, but at least okay. And I heard that he made a 63-yarder in his tryout.
He had way more of a leg than the 6'9" dude.
Yeah, he might not be good, but he might look like he plays the sport.
Because I think he could at least, not be good, but
it looks like he plays in the NFL. I can't say that about the other dudes they've had. No, guys are out here killing Dave Campo.
They're just absolutely brutal. What, like, you need to talk to your boy Trent Baalke and be like, Trent, go to Tony Khan. Tell him to open up some spreadsheets. Can't he find a kicker? Find the best kicker in college football for next year, and like
that's my thing. I'm like watching like Santoso and Nevis at the start of camp. I'm like, how was this your plan? Like, were you just hoping one of them would magically become good? Like these dudes are terrible.
They need to call Chris Medlin.
Hey, Ethan Waugh, does he have a better track record of finding kickers and wide receivers than Baalke? Please tell me he does. Like, I don't know. Somebody go crunch the numbers on that.
It's got a Debo.
Okay.
He's a big Debo guy.
Okay. All right.
In terms of better at scouting receivers, I think you have to have a pulse and to have scouted one receiver before, because you're probably up there.
I don't know if we have, like, if anybody in the league's got a worse tandem of head coach and GM when it comes to identifying wide receiver talent. But hopefully they lucked into a Pro Bowl player in Zay Jones, like we all are expecting. That'll be good.
It's not luck when they do the work, man. Masterclass.
The masterclass. We got anything else for Ship, guys?
Cap, you got to make him run the gauntlet, right? You got a gauntlet ready?
It's we've packed this episode full of content for
There's so much good content. Yeah.
The football people are just gonna orgasm all over this episode.
All right, I got one last thing then for all these football people who are jerking off right now. Give us one.
That's a
surprise.
visual.
Give us one surprise cut.
One surprise cut.
Shock us. Bold take us.
That they're such a weird team where, like, they're clearly not a good team yet, but they don't have that many,
enough
like,
depth to cut anybody who you
they
think
don't have that
weird,
many questionable spots. Yeah, there's like 10 people on the team who I think that cut would surprise you for any team. I mean, Gregory Jr., like a 6th-round pick who people only heard of when he got drafted. Like, would that surprise you? I don't think he's making the team. Okay. Maybe Treadwell, LaVisca, maybe Will Richardson. I could see him getting IR too. I mean, outside of their like 22 players who start, they don't have that many people where you're like, damn, that guy's a keeper. I would have said Rudy Ford earlier in camp because, like, he was legit running with like the 3rd, 4th team defense at the start of camp. I think, has shown out on special teams enough to kind of earn himself a role. But I mean, maybe if they go light at safety, maybe Rudy Ford. But I would.
They already cut the DT. The tackle they traded for. That would have been the surprise.
Yeah, true.
They just got him out of the paint early so he could find a job. Malcolm Brown.
I mean, they cut the receiver everybody put in Canton next to Bazzelli, so nobody's safe.
It was the Lee one.
Yeah.
Wingham.
My God, what a shocker that was. Can't believe it.
John Shipley, what do you got coming up on Jaguars report? Anything to plug? You guys, are you doing the 53-man roster? Are you giving your prediction? Have you already done that?
I've already done it, and they're one of the teams where I might make like 2 changes, maybe 3, and it's more or less going to, I think, look like what people expect. Like, and one of those changes is literally because they have a dude they just traded a pick for. I don't think they're going to cut 6 days after they trade a pick for him. Maybe they do. It'd be a Jaguars thing to do that and, completely wait the guy a week after, after you see him practice 2 times, you're like, shit, maybe we don't want this guy. But other than that, yeah, I'm going to have something on that. I'll have the one thing I'm like looking forward to working on is, I love talking to, people about, kind of the behind the scenes stuff that people do to kind of get ready for the season. And I talked to the, when Travis ETN worked out with Zeke and Melvin Gordon, and you heard that guy in the background kept being like, go, 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 and making those weird grunts. I talked to him about a story on ETN. I'll have that next week. Just them kind of working out together, what he saw from him, like physically, and what kind of year he thinks he's going to have. Because he's worked out with a lot of people. He's Zeke's main trainer, and he was impressed by him. So I'll have some next week on me and him talking, and then just a few other things like that. Before the season gets rolling.
Nice, man. You've done a great job with the training camp reports, dude. I think I've quote tweeted about half of them and said you guys got to read these because they've been super comprehensive. So if you're not keeping up with Ship, then shame on you because he's the best one on the beat in our humble opinion. We are a football podcast, people. We're football men, all of us, even
Football
Chris
guys.
Man squirts.
Arden's key.
That's what you get here. Well, I guess if there's nothing else for Ship, man, we packed a bunch of stuff into this one. We appreciate you joining us, dude.
No, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been too long. I have a horrible habit of I say pretty much yes to anybody who asks me to come on to a podcast or whatever. And out of all the ones that I come on, like this is always the one like I actually look forward to. I actually enjoy doing. So I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you guys being flexible with me as I, get used to domesticated life and whatnot and have my schedule changing around. So
you're good.
I appreciate you guys.
Start taking orders, you mean?
I won't. I plead the fifth.
We didn't want to flood the internet with too much good content last week with Dunn and Drew releasing the stadium food reviews. We might have broken the internet between that and a John Shipley football packed podcast. So it's a good thing that we spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean you don't want to overload people. I mean they can't have you talking about people talking about stadium food one day and then football and next. I don't know how they multitask, juggle these things together.
Let's be honest, their heads would explode, and we don't want that.
Yeah.
Like that's just,
I mean, especially with the food we got over there.
Yeah, it would. There's something else would explode after that Philly cheesesteak too. But I'm not gonna.
Bro, you're not.
It still all looks better than. I might get in trouble for this, but I don't care because it's been this bad since I've been there. The press box food, I have 2 cats that are sitting in front of me. I wouldn't feed it to them.
I was going to ask you that off the record. Like, is it as bad up there? I didn't think there was any way.
It's worse. It's horrible. It's horrible. And Jags PR, love you guys. The press box food stinks. It's horrible.
Fix it, motherfuckers.
Whoa, the MFers was Chris Mansquirts from the Bold City podcast. Bold Take, whatever the hell this shit's called. It's late.
Hey, Tad used to order us pizza. I just want to point out Tad was that dude.
Tad was a legend. Rest in peace, Tad. We all miss him.
Bold City podcast.
Has Tad signed a contract with the Live Tour yet?
Oh, you're just gonna get everybody in trouble on here tonight. Oh, Jesus, dude, we gotta cut all this out. Cut it out.
The worst thing I did this training camp would say the press box food sucked, and it was a good camp for me. I'm trying to stay out of trouble this year. That's my goal, is to be more stress-free this season, not get any trouble with anybody. And so if that's the most trouble I'm getting into, I'm cool with it.
Well, we're going to do our best to hopefully limit the times that you have to text us behind the scenes and be like, yo, could you just not tweet that? So we'll try and keep that to a minimum this season. No promises, though. I don't know.
We can't help it. We're just problematic. There's nothing I can do about it.
It's all right. I have to tell myself that half the time. It's all right.
Ship, we legit, this is a true story. We're at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and we thought we scored like the greatest seats in the world because they were like on the floor, pretty close to like the VIP section where Shad and everybody were sitting. And then we got down there and there was like 7 other people because nobody was at the induction. And it was hot as hell because they put these white floor mats down that like the sun just radiated off of. And then we saw this group of Jag fans that paid like $9,000 for their seats that were up in the actual like stands. And we're like, we could go stand behind them, be kind of part of the atmosphere and be in the shade. And that sounds like a much better idea than sitting down here with whoever the ref was and his
getting awkwardly waved at by Tony Khan.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I was getting at. So we're walking like we're walking to go execute that great game plan. And we come up on the expensive area and we see Tony and Shad, and like Shad obviously doesn't know who the hell any of us are, doesn't care, right? Nor should he, right? Like you have that much money, like no offense taken, no expectation here, whatever. Tony looks right at us, clearly recognizes Dilla, and they have this awkward moment where Dilla does one of these and Tony kind of goes and walks off. And I remember as we're walking up the stairs to go up to the shade, I'm like, damn, why's that gotta be so awkward, you know? And like Dylan and Solly just both look at me and like, do you not remember the whole off season? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, the clowns. And I was like, oh shit, that's the life of a Jag fan, Shipley. Like
Yeah.
we legitimately like, yeah. And so it was an awkward moment, and I had forgotten why it should be awkward.
That's been one of my big lessons. Like, you know, the things I tweet now compared to the things I tweeted in 2019, my first year covering a team, are so dramatically like different. Like I remember I tweeted in 2019 after like it was some game where Quincy Williams was playing terrible. I was like, the new 56 plays like the old 56. And I think about it now. I'm like, bro, why would you tweet that? You have to like code see these people every day. You know, like cool without posting insane stuff. So yeah. I've learned that lesson.
Well, you know, it's funny to look at the different people who cover the league and the different things that, you know, the different styles they have. Because you got like a guy like Mike Silver who would just be like, "You're blocked, motherfucker," you know, like.
To me, the important thing is if you're going to say anything, at least be willing to, you know, own it. Like if you ever see them in person, and that's my thing. Like if I'm ever critical of a guy, you know, like, you know, I walk into the locker room and I'm still walking by. I'm like, you know, hey, you know, what's up? Because that's the thing. I think you gotta, you know, shouts to Urban Meyer, you gotta own it.
I would go shake Tony Khan's hand and be like, "Yeah, the clown nose thing. I think I came up with that. Sorry."
Yeah, we didn't get anywhere near there. We weren't distinguished guests like
healing is a process.
Yeah, well, we weren't distinguished guests like everybody who's ever worked for 1010XL or
Eugene Fournette.
Or Lenny Curry. Like we didn't get any invites to any of those.
Lenny Curry was sweating down there.
Lenny was lit at 11 o'clock in the morning in Canton, Ohio.
Let's be honest, you can't judge him for it. There was nothing else to do there. All right, let's wrap this one up, boys. Ship, I don't know if you remember how our patented sign off, but you know, we got to tell our good buddy, we got to show some affection for him because he doesn't get a lot, you know. So I love you, JB.
I love you, JB.
Love you, JB.
No, for real though, JB, I miss the fuck out of you, and I love you.